Alright, what's good everybody? This is old Papa G, and today I'm gonna make a nice video for Shadowlands pre-patch. Yesterday I made a video, it seemed to be really popular. It's actually the most views that I've gotten on a YouTube video so far, so I figured I would make another one. This time it's going to be a little bit cleaner. So what the video's basis is going to be about is it's going to be Shadowlands PvP tier list based on arena comps. Now, I'll go over it as I'm going through the video. This does not mean that, number one, they won't be reliable in PvP. They could be good in BGs. And I'm noticing that that is a factor right now. Some classes are good in BGs and RBGs, but they're not as good in Arena. And the reason why they're not as good in Arena is because Arena is like a whole different type of environment. Um, and it's for obvious reasons. Certain classes just don't work with other classes. There's a lot of classes that are really just solo. And I'll explain that while I go through the classes. Like some classes, they're in the C tier because they are not good. They are in the C tier because of that. But there's classes in the C tier that they actually are good in BGs and RBGs, but they just don't have a lot of comps that work with them, and it tends to be classes that they really lack in one thing, but they're really strong in another thing. So like they'll have a lot of high burst damage. However, they really won't be too efficient in survivability, utility, CC, stuff like that. So I just wanted to explain what the video is going to be about first before we really get into it. I'm going to be going over melee. I'm going to be going over casters, and I'm going to be going over healers. So it's going to be all three of them. If you want to check out my other video, it's going to be in the bio below. That goes a little bit more into detail in terms of like talent builds. So I gave a talent build for Elemental Shaman, Arms Warrior, and Frost Mage. Now, like I also stated earlier in my other video, if you think I'm unreliable, that I'm not good at the game, whatever you want to believe while I make this video, all of my information are coming from the two most reliable World of Warcraft sources that I think are out there. So number one is MMO Champion. MMO Champion, I highly recommend that if you're into PvP, you go on the website, you check it out, take a look for yourself. I really, really recommend it. And the other one is skillcapped. Skillcapped, they actually used to be that you paid monthly to watch their PvP videos, and that's how good they are. They really try to make you better and all stuff like that. But right now, since it's pre-patch, pre-Shadowlands, all their YouTube content has been free right now. So they've been doing a good job trying to make videos specific to certain classes. But as time's been going on, they've been making their updated videos for class specific, but they haven't updated their tier list. So what I'm doing is I'm updating their tier list basically. So they had their original ranking for casters, healers, and melee, but they haven't updated the video since all the new added features that have been included, the new conduit changes and stuff like that. So I'll go over that as I'm going through the video. So now we'll get into it. So I'm going to do it in based on tier list. So it's going to be C, B, A, and S. You'll also see it's all color coordinated. So it's going to be red is melee, blue is caster, and green is healer. Duh. So first, let's get into the C tier. We'll start off. I'm going to just do the C tier one at a time. So I'm not going to like... I'll do C tier, melee, casters, healer, and then I'll go on to B tier, and then we'll talk a little bit about each one, and I think that way it'll be a better understanding of everything. So, first on the list, we'll do melee. So, melee C tier, we got Fury Warrior. So, Fury Warrior has not been good in a long, long time. Since before Legion, they haven't been relevant. They just don't pack as much of a punch as arms, number one. Number two, they don't have as much utility or even survivability, believe it or not. Like, I know that sounds crazy, but that is a thing. The talent really does make a difference, and the base moves that you get for that spec just aren't as good. So overall, this is one of those classes that it's not the case that they are good in BGs. This is not the class to pick for Warrior. So like I said earlier, I will explain why or why not they're good in BGs or not. So this class, there's really not much to say about Fury. They just aren't good. They haven't been good in years. And Arms Warrior is the pick to be right now. So there's no question about it. Next, we have Enhancement Shaman. Now, Enhancement Shaman is one of those classes that, yes, they are in the C tier. And the reason why they're in the C tier is because, number one, there's just not a lot of comps that can go with them. But the comps that do go with them, like certain burst comps, will actually be good. So a couple things that happened to Shaman that it happened for all classes of Shaman. Like now, Healing Stream Totem is with all Shamans right now, and Enhancement got their Wind Fury back. So classes that are high burst and melee and will benefit from Wind Fury will be good with Enhancement Shaman. So, for example, Ret Paladin. Ret Paladin can one-hit KO classes right now. Even with their Conduit nerf, which just recently happened, they still have one-hit KO capability. They can hit for 30k. Now, if you're adding in Wind Fury Totem, that's all you need right there. You can literally destroy someone. The Paladin will have a chance every minute or so to do the burst again and again and again. So they will have a place. They're in the C tier because there's just not too many comps that go with them, and their survivability is lacking. Elemental is the better choice between the two. Like I just said, their survivability really is lacking. They don't have as much CC as Elemental has, and what else? Yeah, their utility other than Wind Fury Totem and Healing Stream Totem just aren't that good. So next up, we have Survival Hunter. Survival Hunter is one of those classes that I just feel like WoW, the people that make WoW and update WoW, they just don't know what they're going to do with it. Like, it's the only melee class for Hunter. They don't get as much benefit as Marksman does because now Marksman has this thing in their talent that if you're petless, you actually gain damage increase. So Survival they just don't have as much edge as it comes to being Marksman. Another thing that they had Marksman just added was they don't have to worry about line of sight. They have one of these moves, so when people are kiting around the pillars, Hunters could just keep hitting now, and obviously with the increased damage without the pet, they really are the way to go. Survival probably will have its place, but like I said, it just doesn't seem like this is their meta this time around. Now, I know this is going to be a little bit mean or whatever. I put all non-sub rogues in the C tier, and they probably could be in B tier, like Assassination and Outlaw probably could be in B tier. But for me, since sub rogue right now is so overpowered, and still, after all this time, all these classes that have gotten nerfs, whether it's directly to their moveset or their conduits, sub rogues still haven't gotten a hit. Like, it just seems like they are going to let that rock and just see how it goes. Sub rogues are the class to be. Like I said, those other classes, they could be B tier. They could. But I just think people need to stop worrying so much about the spec. They need to just be sub-rogue, and that's just really my feeling about it. Next up, we have the casters. So, Demonology. Go figure. Demonology has literally never been relevant ever since I've played WoW, and I've played WoW since Burning Crusades. I didn't play Vanilla, but I did play Classic WoW when they made the update for Classic WoW. It just seems like this is going to be the trend for as long as WoW exists. They just don't know what to do with Demonology, I feel like. It doesn't have as good dots. It doesn't have as good burst damage. Obviously, it still has Fear, but they're just overall, they just aren't as good anymore. And that's really all I have to say about them. They aren't one of the classes that will be good in BGs. Like, they just won't be. They're not good. And that's the same thing as for BM Hunter. BM Hunter is not going to be relevant at all. They're not going to be good in BGs. They're not going to be good in Arena. And the reason being is, sure, they have a couple cool features. They've added new abilities and stuff like that. But the reason why that they are in the C tier and they just aren't good is because in Arena, when you're doing Arena, you need quick burst damage, or you need a lot of utility. You need something to bring to the table, or a lot of CC, something. The thing with BM is they need to build up their damage. They have to, like, build it up. Like, so I know it sounds a little unusual, but it's just like a build up, and then they get good. the whole thing is that you're not just focusing on one non-movable NPC the whole time. So this is going to be a problem for them. They're really good at AoE style stuff, but yeah, they just are not good right now, and I just do not recommend being them. So for right now, Hunter, the other two specs are just not the ones to be. So let's get into the healer now. We have our C tier, Holy Paladin and Holy Priest. Now, Holy Priest actually just got a buff recently. They got a buff, I think, what was it, 3 days ago or something like that. So they might be pushing B tier, but again, it's one of those scenarios that Discipline Priest is so good that I don't see why you would want to be Holy Priest. Like, stop holding on to the spec and rather hold on to the class. I know people will probably get on me for that and saying, oh, I want to be what I want to be. Great, be what you want to be, but you just won't be as good, and that's just flat out the truth. A lot of people are tier list meta, like that's what they want on their team. That's what guilds want, and it just is what it is. So let's get more into the basis of why. Holy Paladin, skillcapped just released their video for Holy Paladin about a week ago, maybe 5 days ago. So Holy Paladin could see a buff later on down the road because it just feels like they're really doing them dirty right now. Like Blizzard is just not doing them right, and here's why. Their main heal is Holy Light. And for some reason they made it that their Flash of Light just isn't as strong anymore. So obviously Flash of Light is a quicker heal overall. It's a 1.5 second cast, whereas Holy Light, you're pushing 2 second cast. Sure, it does more, but there's more time for people to interrupt you, stop you, and all stuff like that. So it's just not where it needs to be right now. Obviously, they are the only plate-wearing healer in the game, so they are definitely relevant. At some point, I do think Blizzard will adjust, and I think they will be pushing B tier later down the road, just not early game. And like I just said for Holy Priest, skillcapped released their video. They did receive a buff when it came to conduits. MMO Champion actually posted it as well. But yeah, they just aren't as good as Discipline, which is why I really put them in the C tier. They could be B tier, but for me, I'm just not going to put them in my B tier. So yeah, now we're going to move on now, and we're going to go on to the B tier. And like we just did last time, we're going to do melee first again. So first, whoops, sorry about that. We have the B tier, and we're going to do melee. So in the original skill cap video, they actually did not have Demon Hunter or Feral in the B tier in their list, which came out a month ago. They didn't update it. They did update their caster video, but also that was 3 weeks ago, so it's still not as current. So I'm trying to make it as up to date as possible as I watch their videos, and I watch them all the way through multiple times. So originally they had Demon Hunter and Feral in their C tier, but their most latest Feral video, they boosted a lot of the things, a lot of their CC. They could get off Cyclones now a little bit easier, and their bleeds got updated a little bit. But like I said, they were in C tier. Now I think if they made their updated video, they would move it into B tier because they specifically say that Feral is now going to be mid-pack. They say really the knock on being Feral is there's classes that are similar like Sub-Rogue and Windwalker Monk, which they feel if you're going to pick Feral, you might as well pick one of the other twos. I understand people like to pick their class. I don't understand being so specific down to the spec. But people like their class, so they're going to be more of a mid-pack. They do have their place. There are teams that do prefer Feral Druid. Like, it's going to be a thing. But yeah, Demon Hunter, in particular, they have seen big nerfs since BFA. They had a lot of borrowed power, meaning a lot of the stuff that they got from their neck piece, like Lucid Dreams and stuff like that, they lost all of that. And they all, on top of that, their regular base set moves also seen nerfs. Like, so their CCs and their utility just isn't as strong as it was. Now, Ret is going to be the best in the B tier. And that being, I just went over a little bit earlier when it comes to enhancement, they are really bursty right now. They're probably, I wouldn't say best, but they're probably top 3 best burst melee class in the game right now. And it's because they're only one of 2 classes that have the capability of one-hit KOing. I've seen them hit 30 to 35k, and even with their recent nerf, like I said 3 days ago, they had an update on conduits, and they did see a little bit of a nerf. But in exchange, their utility got increased a little bit. They can get at CCs a little bit faster now with certain abilities. So right now, Ret is probably the #1 melee in the B tier. So next we have our casters. We have Fire Mage and Destro Warlock. Now, originally in their caster video 3 weeks ago, they had Destro Warlock in the A tier. It took a little bit of a hit, so now I'm dropping it personally down to the B tier. Now, when it comes to in terms of Fire Mage, ever since the pre-patch came out, I'm leaning towards being a mage. I tried all 3 mage specs myself on top of listening to all the skill cap videos. I just wanted to see what was the deal. Fire Mage is going to still be relevant. Fire Mage will have its place. They are really, really bursty still. They're not as obviously strong as they were in BFA because they were S tier in BFA. But they are definitely going to be good in certain scenarios. They'll be fun in BGs. They have a lot of instant moves, just like they did in BFA. A lot of strong hitting, instant damage. So, like I said, they will have their place. Destro Warlock has seen big nerfs in multiple places. They just aren't as bursty as they once were. Their dots aren't as efficient as they are for Affliction. So, as of right now, I put them in the B tier. And like I said, Fire Mage is definitely going to be relevant. It will serve its place. Now, the sole healer in the B tier for healers is Resto Shaman. They just released their video for Resto Shaman 2 weeks ago. So as far as I can see, and according to skillcapped, they are going to be a mid-pack healer. But there's a catch with them. They are going to have their place in the meta. They will have certain teams that they're good with. They have pretty decent CC, but they're one of the only healers, other than Discipline Priest, that's going to focus on doing damage as well. Because Lava Burst is so strong right now, and it's really all about the Lava Burst. They will be doing output. Obviously, they don't have the ability like they had in BFA. It used to be Ghost Wolf. If you were a Resto spec and you were in Ghost Wolf, you would get healed. You wouldn't even have to heal yourself. You would only have to focus on healing other people. So losing that is a huge, huge nerf. But they'll definitely have their place because it's interesting. They're going to be a damage type of healer. So it's definitely going to be interesting how it works out, and they will have their place in the meta. Now we're moving right along to the A tier. Now this A tier seems a little bit packed out. I know there's 4 in there, but we're going to go into each one specifically. So for melee, we have Unholy, Death Knight, Frost Death Knight, Monk, and Arms Warrior. Unholy and Frost are both really, really good. Death Knight has been good for a long time now, ever since they came out, really. I've never seen them not in A tier. So in terms, we'll start with Unholy. In terms of Unholy, I would say right now Frost is better, but Unholy has certain things that they do much better than Frost does. So I'm going to give an example right now. They're better for their survivability and their overall longer matches. So in terms of when they play certain comps, if it's going to be a longer match and they're not playing a burst team, Unholy is going to be better in that scenario. They really pan out well with Affliction Warlock. So Unholy, Affliction, and Discipline Priest is definitely going to be a top meta team, probably top 5 comp, because you're basically getting a couple S tiers and an A tier. They spread their dots, and also now that they brought back Lynchborn, which turns you into an undead, and with Death Coil, they have really good sustainability. They could heal themselves. They're really good. Like I said, they are going to be relevant, and I don't think that's going to be changing. Next, we're going to go over Frost. I almost said Demon Hunter. Frost Death Knight. Frost Death Knight is definitely where it's at right now. They added the ability to have two-handed melee. So it used to be in BFA, they made it that you could only dual wield. So here's the issue with the dual wield. They hit faster, but it's just not as damaging. The buff that they received is now you could do two-handed Frost. If you played back in the day Wrath of the Lich King, Obliterate with two-handed Frost was devastating. They probably are a top 3 burst damage melee in the game. They're definitely going to be good with burstier teams. They don't have as much utility as Unholy has, but they have way stronger bursts. They're going to be relevant in burst teams like with Ret Pally or an assortment of things like that. And yeah, that pretty much just covers Frost Death Knight. Next, we got Monk. So Monk, they actually just made their video for Monk 2 days ago. Windwalker Monk is not as strong as it was in BFA, but they really haven't seen that much of a hit as they've recently taken. So I think they're going to be definitely relevant. Well, not they are going to be relevant. They're in the A tier. Skill capped hasn't really went too much into detail about them. They really only seen slight nerfs to their abilities. Obviously, if you played BFA, you know that Windwalker Monk was an S tier, and there's no doubt about it. So they probably are going to be remaining relevant. The one thing that happened to them is you can't cancel out your roll ability, so it kind of affects your mobility a little bit. It used to be that you could just cancel it and then get right back into combat and stuff like that. So it is a little bit different. It's not as good as it was, but still a very, very strong class. They're going to be in burst teams and sustain teams. That's how good they are. They go for both. Now, the last for the A tier for Melee is Arms Warrior. Arms Warrior is the best warrior by far. It's not even close. They have the most utility, they have the most survivability, and they have the best damage. Out of all three categories, they're the best one. They've recently seen updates in their moveset. They have a lot of moves right now. So, for example, they have Intervene. So now, if you don't know what it is, I'm going to explain it. Intervene is you charge at a friendly target and take the damage or move that was going to be done to that target. So now you could essentially take away Hammer of Justice, Fear, anything like that, and take it off of your healer and put it on yourself. They also have received Spell Reflection back, Ignore Pain. They've kept other parrying style moves, so they could sustain a lot of damage. So anything with a healer with them is going to be relevant. They're definitely good. They have the most utility out of any melee class in the game. So they honestly kind of are borderline S tier. They're going to be relevant. Honestly, if Sub Rogue gets any nerf at all, like the slightest bit of nerf, Arms Warrior is going to go up to S tier. That's how relevant they are. So there's really nothing much more I can say about them. So now we're going to go into the casters. So Balance Druid has seen a buff. Skill Cap just made their video a week ago. Originally they were in the B tier, but the buff boosted them up to the A tier. They have really good survivability with their bear form. They added a lot of moves that are now for all druid classes, not just Balance. They're also for Feral and Resto. Their dots are stronger than ever. Obviously, if you've been keeping up with Shadowlands at all, you know that they've had updates to their playstyle. So now they brought Eclipses back. So their whole style with Lunar and Solar Eclipse. They have the ability that they were missing for Moonfire, hits double targets. They still have their Moonkin Aura, which they have the armor ability, which gives them a little bit more sustainability. They have Thorns, Iron Bark Skin. What else about them? Oh, they also have really, really good off heals, and that's why they got boosted up to the A tier. And I didn't mention this earlier, now that just came into my head. Red Paladin also has good off heals. But anyway, back to Balanced Druid. They probably have the best off heals in the game right now. No, I'm sorry. That's a lie. The second best off heals in the game right now to Shadow Priest. And yeah, that's pretty much all that can be said about them. They also received abilities that Bear Form had that were only to Feral, like Mighty Bash, and other things like that. It used to be in BFA that your Cat Form and Bear Form were pretty much irrelevant. You had no moves at all, but they really changed that a lot, and now it gives them more survivability and more CC. Now, the two mage specs. There's Arcane. If I had to choose between the two right now, Frost Mage is going to be better, and the reason why Frost Mage is better, it has more utility, more CC, like not really CC, but like movability. It will hold people down better, and it'll be involved in more comps like RMP, stuff like that, which is Rogue Mage Priest, and it is the better mage to pick. Now, again, this is also one of those things. If the S tier gets any sort of nerf at all, they're gonna lose something. So that's really all that has to do with that. Hold on one sec. So this is what we have so far throughout the list. as I was saying, Frost Mage is going to be more in more comps. They've seen, I would say, a little bit of a buff. Ice Lance has seen huge buffs. Um, there's no doubt about it. Ice Lance is going to be your bread and butter. A lot of their talents evolve around your Ice Lance, keeping enemies frozen, or they're marked as a frozen target even though they're moving. And Ice Lance does a lot of damage. Even at level 50 right now, I'm almost hitting 3,000s with it. So it's definitely a really strong move. And also their new ability is they don't have to summon their water elemental. You basically get rid of your water elemental and it increases your Frostbolt um, and your Ice Lance's damage. So that's it for the A tier. Now next we have our healers in the A tier. We got Resto Druid and Mistweaver Monk. So Resto Druid was originally in their B tier for skill capped, but now it's just seen a buff. So meaning they are going to be relevant again. They are definitely really good. They have their hots. They have the best heals over time in the game. Originally they were in the B tier because they couldn't heal out of strong burst damage. They would get slaughtered. They're more about spreading their heals around with hots. So it could be a problem against certain burst style teams, but they are going to be in the A tier now with the buffs that were made, and obviously they have the most mobility out of any healer, and they still have Cyclone, so they're going to be relevant. And then Mistweaver Monk. Mistweaver Monk, after their most recent skill cap video, they actually seen a little bit of a nerf. I still kept them in the A tier. Skill cap might drop them down to the B tier. I'm unsure. For the same reasons, they seem like they don't have a lot of mobility. As I mentioned earlier, they can't roll cancel anymore, so it kind of affects their mobility. They still have their pillar that they could teleport to and stuff like that. Their healing is efficient. They could heal through burst, so they definitely are relevant. And now we will do our last. So the only S tier melee. Why does it keep doing that? Our only S tier melee, Sub Rogue. So Sub Rogue is going to be the only in the S tier. They are in a league of their own right now, and they still haven't received any nerfs. I highly recommend you watching, if you want to be a rogue, watching the skill cap video, and then you'll really understand why Sub Rogue. There's no reason to be Assassination or Outlaw. Sub Rogue is the rogue to be. They have the strongest damage. They have an ability with their conduit right now, so it's kind of borrowed power. However, it's still in the game, so it's going to be good. Their Sinister Strike can deal double damage, 100% double damage, paired with an enhancement with Wind Fury. They're also going to be really good with Discipline Priest and Elemental Shaman or Ret for the burst and the CC combination. Rogue's damage, sub-rogue damage is really high right now. They're not as bursty as the other ones, but it doesn't matter because they have the best CC in the game. They have really good survivability with coming in and out of stealth. They have a lot of utility. They really just are in a league of their own right now, and I really, really recommend, if you're going to be a rogue, to be a sub-rogue only. Okay, now let's get right into it. We'll do our casters now because we're almost at the end of our list. S-tier casters. In the most updated videos for casters, just in general, 3 out of 4 of these classes have been boosted from either B or A tier into the S tier. So there really is going to be a lot of really good casters in the game. First, we'll start off with Affliction. Affliction has now, originally in BFA, why Affliction wasn't as good as Destro Warlock was because a lot of different classes had the ability to take off curses, and Affliction Warlock's dots had like a slight cooldown, so they couldn't reapply them instantly. That is no longer the case. Affliction can reapply those dots right away. Their dots will always be on throughout the match, so they have a lot of spread damage. They work well with Unholy. And yeah, they obviously have really good CC. They have, I would say, out of all the Warlocks, the best survivability. They are still squishy because they're a cloth wearer, but they have the best survivability out of the 3, and they have really good CC. Elemental Shaman has seen a huge buff recently within the last 2 weeks because of their conduits and their changes to Lava Burst. They went from the B tier to the S tier. Lava Burst is the hardest hitting move in the game. They have the capability. They're the only caster in the game that has capability of one-hit KOs. And it's all because of the Lava Burst. They will have a harder time against comps that how do I word this? Will have really they're going to have a harder time against comps that could stay on them the whole time, and they can't get off their lava burst as easily. So if they're playing against sub rogue warrior team, they're going to have a harder time getting off their lava burst. So it's going to be a little bit more difficult if they're the focus of the match the whole time. But if they're playing cast or double cast or stuff like that, they are going to cause havoc. Like I also mentioned earlier, they received healing stream totem back, so now they're giving more utility, a little bit more heal. They have decent off heals. And they also receive more CC. Like they don't just have Hex anymore. They have Lightning Lasso. They have Capacitating Totem. So they are definitely S tier worthy. Next, Marksman Hunter. Marksman Hunter is where it's at right now. They have their new line of sight ability that they don't even need to worry about it. So when healers or melees that are about to die try to hide behind the pillar, Hunter can just click that move. I believe it's a 1 minute cooldown, and it lasts 15 seconds. They can shoot behind the pillar, and it doesn't matter about the line of sight. They have really strong burst. They have good utility. They have good CC. Their traps aren't affected. They still have all their traps, so they're good to go. And it's the only choice for Hunter. If you're going to be a Hunter, you should 100% be Marksman Hunter. And lastly, probably the best in the S tier for caster is Shadow Priest. Again, they've been in S tier since the beginning. Go figure, Shadowlands, Shadow Priest, duh, they're going to be relevant. Like I just said, so they have really good off heals. They probably have the best off heals out of all casters. They have really strong survivability. Their heals are good. They have the shield still. They have good utility. And they have really good CC. They have fear. They have a stun. They have disarm, and yeah, they are definitely going to be relevant. They haven't received a nerf just like sub rogue throughout this whole time, so I don't think it's going to change. And yeah, if you want to be a priest melee, priest damage, this is the time to be it. Now, lastly, our S tier healer, and it stands alone. Discipline Priest. They haven't received a nerf yet. They're not going to receive a nerf. They do atonement healing, which means that they do damage while they heal. Like I just mentioned earlier in this video, Resto Shaman does the same thing. So between the two, they're the only two that really do sufficient damage as a healer. Discipline Priest will probably do out damage some classes, to be honest with you. Depending on the class that they're going up against, they will out damage them. If you played back in the day Wrath of the Lich King, that's how strong they are again. They used to be a freaking nightmare to play against. They are really, really good right now. Their heals are strong, their utility is strong, their shields are strong, their damage is strong. They are by far the best healer in the game right now, so this is why I really put Holy Priest in the C tier instead of the B tier, because there's just no reason for you to not pick this priest. And yeah, that's it. So that's it for my tier guide. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. Please, if you like the video, subscribe, like. I would appreciate it. And I'm going to be making a lot more WoW videos during the pre-patch, and after the game officially comes out. A couple things to also mention right now for the pre-patch. If you don't know what you want to be, right now to get from level 1 to 50, you could buy a level 50, I think, for $60, or it legitimately only takes 7 hours to get to level 50 right now. So that's really, really big. Obviously, the game doesn't have a release date yet, so I really suggest that you go out there and go get that done. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you for tuning in.